Hello and welcome, this is Wendy B. Thanks for joining me. I'm excited to share with you this tutorial for a chapstick hole that I've been making a lot of lately. I made them over Christmas and they're a great hit as stocking stuffers and little gifts for neighbors. I created this basic design for Valentine's Day and I love the fact that they're going to be really easy to reproduce. Inside, I customized them with some patterned paper over top of the chapstick, and I love the fact that there's a little space to write either a personalized note or just stamp to or from and put the person's name. So it's kind of like a card and a gift all in one. So let's go ahead and get started. I decided to use a Lawn Fawn Bugs and Kisses stamp set. I thought the sentiment would be perfect. And there's lots of little bugs and critters that work perfectly for the design that I wanted to use as well. I'm using the smaller heart from the Baked with Love stamp set, but you could use anything that you happen to have at home that would work as well. I'm going to go ahead and use Memento ink and stamp out the sentiment. Now when you're stamping out the sentiment, you want to either stamp above or below the middle so that you have enough room when you're punching your hole and for the twine to not cut off your sentiment. I'm going to be doing some alcohol marker coloring, so like I said, I decided to use Memento ink. You could use whatever you had at home again. If you're going to decide not to do some alcohol marker coloring, you could also use just colored pencils or even distress markers or anything that you happen to have at home on hand. When you're stamping out your ladybugs, you're going to want to make sure that you're tilting them to different angles and sort of pointing them in different directions. It just adds a little bit more interest to the panel. To cover up the white space, I'm going to go ahead and use that smaller heart from the Baked with Love stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it out in the Lawn Fawn Mermaid ink. The blue was a nice contrast to the red, and I just wanted to use something that was kind of small but still had some detail to fill up the rest of the white space. So I sped up this video a little bit just so you can see, but what I'm doing the same thing that I've done with the ladybugs, and I've go ahead and just sort of filling up all the white space with the hearts and making sure to tilt the hearts in different directions so that it gives a bit of added interest and doesn't look too placed. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill up whatever white space is left with those blue hearts, and now I'm going to go ahead and start to color them in. I'm using only two basic colors of my Spectrum Noirs. The CR11 is a basic red, and I'm just going to go ahead and do some really basic coloring. Now that I've done that, I'm going to do the same thing with the bodies using an IG9, which is a very super dark, cool gray. Now that we've done some really basic coloring and colored in our bugs, we can go ahead and start scoring the base. You can find all the measurements to the cardstock on my blog, and we're going to score at 2 3/8 and 3 1/8. Some really basic score lines there. For the smaller inner strip, we're going to score it at 3/4 and 2 1/4. Now that you've got all your pieces stamped and ready and scored, we're ready to go ahead and start putting it together. Now the lip balm that I had was left over from Christmas, so I knew I needed to cover that up with some patterned paper. So I measured it from top to bottom, from vertical just below the lid to the base of the lip balm, and I used a piece of string to measure how long or how wide the piece of patterned paper I'm going to need is, rather than trying to figure out with a ruler or wrap it around. I'm using my tape runner on this because I knew that I needed to really cover that and have something that was super strong and instantly drying. So I'm just covering the back of that really well with the tape runner, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere it down to the chapstick, making the piece of paper parallel with the bottom and just applying some pressure as I'm wrapping it around. Now that covers up the fact that it's a winter themed lip balm, and it makes it really cute and matches the lip balm holder perfectly. So you can do this with any lip balm that you happen to have at home. If you cover it up with patterned paper, then it makes it perfectly matched. We're going to go ahead and start assembling the pieces. Now when you're at home, you could of course, if you are making lots of these to make it easy, you can do what I'm doing. You just assemble it down with some straight tape runner or glue. You could also add some dimension to it and put some foam tape or pop dots behind there just to add a little more interest as well. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down to the front, and then we'll move on to the inside. Now the smaller piece that goes on the inside, as you know, has two score marks, so I just fold along the score lines. And I'm going to go ahead now and take my bone folder and just sort of crease that paper to make it a little bit rounder. And we're doing that so that when we put it inside, it doesn't actually fold and stays nice and round and holds the lip balm nicely with no creases. Now I was about to use my tape runner, but I realized that liquid glue would be better. And I wanted to make sure that I had just a second or two of wiggle room to make sure that my score lines are going to be parallel with each other as I'm adhering it down. I'm going to pick up the piece of cardstock base and just sort of fold it in and just make sure that everything is lined up perfectly as I'm pressing the liquid glue down. It takes seconds to dry, and it just gives you that few extra seconds to make sure that everything is straight. Now that we've gone ahead and done that, I'm going to go and adhere a piece of white paper on the inside. Now as you see, there's a little bit of adhesive on the front, and I use my adhesive remover to take that off. I love that tool. It's a really, really handy tool. It's extraordinarily inexpensive, and if you don't have one, I recommend that you do get them. You can pick them up at your local craft store or online. You can find a link to all the supplies that I've used below, and also on my blog as well, and that will be included in that collection. So this piece of white paper I'm adhering down is just somewhere where you can write a personalized note, like I said, or maybe include someone's name, just a to and from stamp, or just leave it blank. Your lip balm will fit perfectly inside there. Any standard size lip balm, Burt's Bees, Chapstick, anything that you happen to have around. And I'm going to go ahead and punch a hole. And now really the lip balm holder is now pretty much done. You can use ribbon or twine or baker's twine to hold it shut. I'm using Fawn's Lawn Trimmings in Aquamarine. I love this twine because it's nice and thick and it holds the shape of the bows really well. It's also really easy to tie up and move the bows around to position where you want them to be. So of course I'm going to go ahead and just tie that shut. You could use a glue dot as well to hold your knot closed if you wanted a little bit more of a permanent or more steady adhesive. So I also made a couple other designs for this chapstick holder that I thought I'd like to share with you as well. So these can be used not just for Valentine's Day, not just for Christmas, but for really any occasion, just as a thank you gift or for birthday party favors or what have you. This is the second one that I made, and I took a little more time to make it. I used some vellum with some heat embossing. As you can see, I've got some foam dots there, and I did a little more coloring with my alcohol markers. I covered the lip balm again with some patterned paper, and I stamped on the inside. So as you can see, there's lots of variation that you can do between the Christmas, Valentine's Day, birthday party, or whatever. So I hope you had as much fun as I did making these, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.